And then the other thing I've done is I last night I sat down and I watched Godzilla versus Kong. Ooh. So if you guys will indulge me, I'll give you a few thoughts on Godzilla versus
go for
Kong.
it, man.
Please do.
So we talked about this. We saw the trailer. I was super excited for this movie. Who doesn't love giant monsters punching each other in the face, right? And I can say this for Godzilla versus Kong. When the giant monsters are punching each other in the face or on screen having their fights, it's one of the most fun things you'll ever see. It's everything you want it to be, and then some. The CGI in this movie is beyond awesome. Like the special effects guys who did this it's next level. Like I genuinely can't sing their praises enough. Like what they've done in this film to bring Kong to life and Godzilla to life. Absolutely. Honestly, there's so many great interactions with them, and the way they think the battles are so epic. And I think one thing I really like about it is if you watch Pacific Rim, the first one, there's a real feeling of like mass and weight to the robots and the kaijus. They really feel like these big things fighting each other, you know, like these massive monsters. There's a real weight to everything they do. And Godzilla versus Kong has that. Now, if you watch Pacific Rim Uprising, the sequel to Pacific Rim, everything moves super lightning fast and it's like got no weight or presence. And that's why the movie just kind of doesn't feel right. It feels like Power Rangers to a degree. Do you know what I mean? Instead of like this real grounded, real fight. So it does that brilliantly right. Like the weight and the sort of, you know, impact of every punch can be felt. Where Godzilla versus Kong falls apart in its entirety is anytime the monsters aren't fighting. The storyline, the human storyline that you have in it. Now, I will say, referencing Alan, he mentioned in Godzilla, the first movie, the human storyline is the bigger part of the movie and it's more central. And it really works in that film. I still think there wasn't enough Godzilla in Godzilla. But I do, know that you need the human element to be there and to be solid. Godzilla versus Kong, the human element is a gigantic mess. The Millie Bobby Brown stuff, I love Millie Bobby Brown, she's great. Why is she in this film? Her whole subplot is completely irrelevant and stupid. And I don't just mean stupid, I mean like, huh? Like, you just kind of go, so just without a real spoiler, there's a point where they break into a facility that's just been attacked. It's supposed to be under heavy guard, and they basically just walk in the front door at night. And you're like, huh? And then they get to a point where they sneak into a secret lab that has literally, no security, not even a fingerprint scanner, not even a door code, not even a padlock. Like, you're like, how? How?
I can see it now on the back of the box when it gets released on 4K Blu-ray. Chris Ratley, the Unnamed Games podcast. Huh? Done. Yeah.
Like, I'm all for suspending disbelief because the whole movie is dumb, right? The whole concept of the movie is dumb. But like, suspending disbelief doesn't mean you have to deal with stupidity and dumb writing. And the writing is awful whenever the humans are on screen for the most part. The little girl relationship with Kong is the only good human thing in the film, really. The rest of it is just cliche after cliche after cliche, like rubbish after rubbish. There's stuff that basically, if you took out all the Godzilla versus Kong bits and made one long video of that, it's a really fun watch. But all the other stuff is just rubbish. Yeah. And I do mean just bad rubbish. Like, if you didn't like the human stuff in Godzilla King of the Monsters, you're going to really hate all the human stuff in this film. If you really like the monster fighting in Godzilla King of the Monsters, you'll love when Godzilla and Kong face off. It's epic, like really genuinely epic. Things happen which cause like things. There's obvious sets up for more sequels. It'll be interesting to see where this goes, but this film is a disappointment in so many ways because it's just not a very good film, but it's a lot of fun, if that makes sense. Like, when Godzilla and Kong are fighting, you have a blast, but at every other point in this movie, like when they're not at each other's throats or there's no monsters fighting, you'll just be sitting there going, what am I watching? This is drivel. Yeah. Like, it's just tripe. And like, not like Godzilla versus King of the Monsters, was tripe. Godzilla King of the Monsters was at least coherent. This doesn't feel coherent. Things just are all over the place. It feels like Millie Bobby Brown's character was just slapped in there to give continuity to that universe, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And she doesn't need to be there at all. I don't understand if I'm trying to bash her because it's not at all. It's just give her decent material because she's a great actress. Do something with those characters, something interesting.
Not shovel her. It just sounds like they just want to shovel her in there because she was in the first film and she brings a certain demographic. Yeah, so we've got to have Millie Bobby Brown. Yeah, exactly. She's big at the moment, so we've got to have her in there. But we don't really need to worry too much about
Yeah.
actually making a story that's coherent. We just have to have her in there.
Yeah, she and it's one guy said it's like they watched an episode of Stranger Things at one point and went, "Oh, she's great in Stranger Things. Let's just write a bit of Stranger Things type stuff for her to do with her friends." And that's what you get. But it's just nonsense. It's absolute nonsense, and it's just so terrible. Like
Sounds
I'm
like
so
a studio
disappointed
decision rather than a creative decision.
well, I don't know, to be honest, mate. I think, to be honest with you, I think they did it on purpose. I just think it's terribly written. Like,
But that's what I mean. I think it's a studio saying, let's get something like this because this is hot at the moment, and this will help with it. You know what I mean?
maybe, but like it is just terribly written. Like I'm talking the whole thing. Like the whole reason Kong and Godzilla fight is the only sensible bit about it. But even then, the way they force that interaction is just lame. Like, it's so lame.
Right,
and
I'm going to put you on the spot. Go on. If you had to give it a score out of 10, where would you reckon you'd land on it? Because obviously you've been like a
it's really difficult to score this movie because it's got as a complete movie. If you talk about it as a coherent working film, it's about a 6 out of 10. Maybe even a 5.5 out of 10. It's just not a good film, truthfully. As a piece of entertainment, if you want to sit down and watch Godzilla and Kong beat the crap out of each other and some cool stuff like that, and there are a few other monsters that show up here and there, which I won't say anything about. It's a brilliant piece of entertainment. It's one of the finest things you'll see. Like as a tech demo for what special effects can achieve. I mean, that's not make it a good movie experience, but that sequences where they're fighting, it's phenomenal. It's some of the best I've seen. That would be like a 9 out of 10. 9.5 out of 10. It's absolutely brilliant. But like a good comparison would be Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim works because when the monsters are fighting, which is actually a very small percentage of the film, you're like, oh my god, this is so brilliant! Look at the giant robots fighting the giant monsters, and then you have all the human stuff, which is a bit corny and cheesy, but at least it makes somewhat sense. Godzilla versus Kong is the same sort of, oh my god, this is so brilliant when they're fighting, which is again a small percentage, maybe a quarter of the film is monsters fighting, and then every other thing in it is like, what the? But it doesn't make any sense, and it's just a mess, and the writing is just awful. So would
you put it in the middle between the two then, like a 7 out of 10? Do you reckon then? Does the CGI and the fighting outweigh the poor story, or is it way?
So you wait too long for the fights most of the time. Like the first encounter happens about 35 minutes into the film, I think, which is not too bad. But then there is just this massive gap where nothing happens for ages, and that just whole part is just drivel. So it really drags the movie down. Like it got to a point where I was like, why am I watching this? Like it's that bad at points, genuinely. And again, not to sound harsh, but every time Millie Bobby Brown shows up, I was like, oh, please not her again, not this whole subplot. It's just awful. There's another slightly better subplot, but because she's like Team Godzilla and Team Kong have another thing going on, which is also nonsense. But
so okay, let me put it a different way then.
I will go 6.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Overall, because it's so dragged down by such rubbish dialogue and I wanted to love this movie. I wanted this to be another Pacific Rim that I could just go, because Pacific Rim is a proper like, I'm going to stick Pacific Rim on because I love that film. I can always watch it. Yeah. Whereas Godzilla versus Kong would feel like a chore to get to the good bits. Like I would find myself skipping to the fights and not watching anything else. Whereas I can watch Pacific Rim for all its cheesy goodness. I might skip bits here and there, but I can watch it as a whole movie. I don't think I could sit through Godzilla versus Kong multiple times without trying to punch someone.
For your droves of followers, would you say to them, it's worth $15.99 to rent, or don't do it?
God no. God no. But yeah, I mean, if it was a £7 cinema ticket and you've got time to kill, I'd say yeah, it's a good way to spend 17 quid. 16 quid if it's a family thing, maybe. But like if it's just you on your own, I would wait for a cheap release of it, like reduced price or an offer, or go onto a streaming service. Genuinely disappointed. As coming from someone who loved Godzilla, loved Skull Island, loved King of Monsters, to get to this point, I'm just kind of going rubbish. Sure. It's just such a disappointment.
Brilliant. Well, no, it's good to have your honest opinion of it, mate. Yeah, hopefully people will find that helpful. So.